The crystal chandeliers inside the Fairmont Hotel's grand ballroom scattered soft rainbows across the polished marble floor, where 200 guests floated through the room in designer gowns, tailored tuxedos, and the kind of jewelry that seemed designed less to sparkle than to announce rank. Tonight was the engagement party for my older brother, Ethan Caldwell, and his fiancée, Celeste Whitmore. The whole event probably cost more than most families made in a year. There were orchids flown in from Thailand, a string quartet hired from the City Symphony, towers of champagne, and hand-calligraphed place cards placed so precisely they looked like museum pieces. Even the ice sculptures felt expensive, carved into shapes that would disappear by midnight but still somehow mattered because people like my family believed beauty was more meaningful when it was temporary and overpriced. I stood near the service entrance in a plain navy dress I had bought 3 years ago for job interviews. It was clean, simple, carefully steamed, and paired with low black flats from a discount store. Around me, women glimmered in diamonds and gowns that had names attached to them. Men checked their watches between conversations about portfolios, vacation homes, and market cycles. I blended into the wall. Not invisible exactly, but close enough. The only people who really noticed me were the catering staff, who occasionally gave me small, professional nods, the kind of nod people give when they assume you are working the same event they are. "Everything is absolutely perfect," I heard my mother say from across the ballroom. She was air-kissing Celeste's mother with the practiced warmth of a woman who had spent her entire adult life learning how to perform affection in public. My mother wore a deep emerald Valentino gown she had bought specifically for this night, and her diamond earrings flashed every time she turned her head. "We're just thrilled to welcome Celeste into the family," she continued. "Ethan has always had wonderful taste." My father stood nearby in his custom tuxedo, one hand wrapped around a glass of champagne, the other gesturing proudly toward the room. "Only the best for our son," he said to a circle of business associates. "Nothing is too good for Ethan. He has worked hard for everything. Harvard Business School, youngest partner at his firm, and now marrying into one of the finest families in the city." There it was again. That tone. The proud, shining voice he used whenever he spoke about Ethan. I had heard it at Ethan's graduation. At Ethan's promotion dinner. At the party when Ethan bought his first penthouse downtown. At every family gathering where his success became the centerpiece and everyone else, especially me, became decoration. I had never heard that voice used for me. Not once in 31 years. Ethan stood near the center of the ballroom, completely at ease, as if the room had been built around him. His arm rested around Celeste's waist while he laughed with a group of friends from business school. His black tuxedo fit perfectly. His hair looked professionally styled. His confidence filled the space around him like heat from a fireplace. Celeste looked like she had stepped out of a bridal magazine. Her dress was pale champagne silk, her hair pinned back in loose waves, and her engagement ring was large enough to catch light from across the room. She kept lifting her hand while she talked, not obviously showing off, but not hiding it either. "The wedding is going to be magical," she told one of her sorority sisters. "Ethan has been so involved. He insisted we book the entire resort for the weekend. We're flying people in from Europe, Singapore, Dubai. It might even be featured in Town and Country." I stayed by the wall and helped the servers whenever they looked overwhelmed. It was not my job. But I had learned a long time ago that at family events, staying busy was easier than standing still. If I carried plates, refilled glasses, or moved quietly between tables, people did not ask me questions about my career, my apartment, my future, or why I had not become the kind of daughter my parents could explain without lowering their voices. "Maya, sweetheart," my mother called across the room, barely looking in my direction. "Could you bring us some of those little caviar canapés? Celeste's parents will love them." I nodded and walked toward the catering station. Around me, people were talking about private schools, tax strategies, children accepted to Ivy League universities, and the difficulty of finding good staff for second homes. No one moved aside for me. No one made eye contact for longer than half a second. In this room, in this dress, with no diamonds, no title, and no husband beside me, I was background. "Excuse me," a woman in a silver beaded gown said as I passed with a tray. "Could you tell me where the ladies' room is?" She thought I worked there. I considered correcting her. Then I didn't. It was easier to point her down the hallway than explain that I was the groom's sister, the one nobody mentioned unless they had to. As I moved through the crowd, I heard fragments of conversation about Ethan's brilliance. His discipline. His ambition. His perfect match with Celeste. Their story had all the ingredients people in that room respected: Harvard, finance, family money, a proposal on a private beach in Santorini, and a future that looked expensive enough to be mistaken for love. Ethan was always exceptional, my aunt told a group of Celeste's relatives. Even when he was little, you could tell. Some children just have that drive. Harvard MBA, partner at 32, now this beautiful engagement. His parents must be so proud. The comparison did not need to be spoken. Everyone understood it. Ethan was the proof that my parents had done something right. I was the quiet question mark standing near the wall. Around 9 o'clock, Celeste's parents arrived. They entered the ballroom like people accustomed to being waited for. Jonathan Whitmore was old money in human form. His family had built shipping routes, private equity networks, and political friendships over several generations. His wealth did not show itself loudly. It showed in the way everyone adjusted when he entered a room. His wife, Margot, wore pearls that probably had their own insurance policy. She looked elegant in a way that could not be bought in a single generation. It had to be inherited, practiced, and protected. "Ethan, my boy," Jonathan said, pulling my brother into a firm embrace. "You look excellent. This entire evening is first class. Your parents have outdone themselves." "Thank you, sir," Ethan said with the smooth charm he used on investors, bosses, and people whose approval could become useful later. "We wanted tonight to be perfect for Celeste. She deserves nothing less." Margot kissed Celeste on both cheeks. "Darling, you look radiant. That dress is stunning." "Custom?" "Custom Marchesa," Celeste said, visibly pleased. "Ethan flew me to New York so we could meet the design team in person. He said tonight had to feel special." The party kept moving. The music grew louder. The champagne worked its way through the room. People became warmer, more animated, more generous with compliments. I continued clearing plates, moving glasses, smiling politely when someone stepped into my path without seeing me. Then, around 10 o'clock, Ethan tapped his champagne flute with a silver spoon. The sound rang through the ballroom. "Everyone," he called, smiling broadly. "Can I have your attention for just a moment?" The room slowly quieted. Guests turned toward him. The string quartet stopped mid-piece. Celeste moved closer to his side, glowing under the chandelier light. "I want to thank all of you for being here tonight," Ethan began. "Celeste and I are incredibly grateful to have so many people we love and respect in one room as we begin this next chapter together." Applause moved through the crowd. I stood near the back, holding an empty tray, watching my brother stand exactly where he loved to stand. At the center. Seen. Admired. Certain. "And since both of our families are finally together tonight," he continued, "I thought it would be nice to introduce Celeste's parents to a few people they haven't properly met yet." His eyes scanned the room. Then they landed on me. The smile on his face changed. It was not warm. It was not loving. It was the same smile he used when we were children, and he knew he was about to win by making me smaller. "Celeste, Jonathan, Margot," he said, gesturing toward me. "Come here for a second. I want you to meet my little sister, Maya." They approached with polite smiles. Jonathan extended his hand. Margot looked me over with the soft, instant assessment of someone trained to identify social value before the first sentence was finished. "This," Ethan announced, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "is Maya Caldwell. The family's resident free spirit." A few people chuckled. I felt my fingers tighten around the empty tray. "She has been exploring her options for the last few years," Ethan continued, "enjoying himself now. Still figuring out what she wants to be when she grows up." The laughter spread. Not cruel in a dramatic way. Worse than that. Casual. Comfortable. The kind of laughter people give when they believe the person being mocked has already accepted their place. "Oh, Ethan," Celeste said, swatting lightly at his arm. "Be nice. I'm sure Maya is lovely. But her voice carried that polished politeness wealthy people use when they want to appear kind without getting too involved. Jonathan's handshake loosened slightly. Margot's smile became more careful. Maya lives in a tiny apartment downtown, Ethan added. She has done a few temporary jobs here and there. We've all tried to encourage her to do something more stable. Administrative work, maybe. Retail management. Something practical. More laughter. I could feel heat rising into my face. Several guests had turned toward us now. A few people had their phones out, recording little pieces of the speech, probably because public embarrassment is always more entertaining when it happens to someone else. She was always creative, my mother added from nearby, as if trying to soften the humiliation while somehow making it worse. Very idealistic. We thought she would outgrow it eventually, but some people hold on to dreams longer than they should. My father nodded. We offered to help her get into something more traditional, he said. Accounting, HR, maybe an entry-level corporate position. Ethan knows people who might be willing to give her a chance despite the unusual background. There it was. My life reduced to a problem the family had tried and failed to solve. In front of 200 people. In front of servers. In front of strangers. In front of my brother's future in-laws. Well, Margot said carefully, everyone finds their path at their own pace. Her tone suggested that my pace had been embarrassingly slow. Ethan looked pleased with the contrast. Tonight was his stage, and I had become the prop that made him look even brighter. The successful son. The disciplined son. The son who understood money, status, and responsibility. And me. The warning label. The thing about Maya, Ethan said, is that she has always believed she was meant to do something special. Big dreams. Big ideas. But at some point, you have to come back to earth. The rest of us are out here building real careers. Celeste's friends nodded with sympathetic amusement. One of Ethan's colleagues smirked into his champagne glass. I stood there, still holding the tray, feeling each second stretch longer than it should. Then Celeste glanced down at her phone. At first, it looked like nothing. Just a quick check. A message. A notification. Something ordinary. But then her face changed. The smile disappeared. Her body went still. She stared at the screen for several seconds, then looked at me. Then back at the screen. Then at me again. Celeste? Margot asked. What is it? Celeste did not answer immediately. Her hand tightened around the phone. Then she turned the screen toward me. Maya, she asked quietly, is this you? The laughter around us faded. Ethan, who had been halfway through another joke, stopped speaking. Jonathan leaned closer. Margot did the same. I looked at the phone. And there I was. On the cover of Forbes. Wearing a white tailored suit, standing in front of the glass wall of my company's headquarters, the city skyline behind me. The headline read, The Invisible Titan, How Maya Caldwell Built a $5.8 billion AI Empire While Her Family Called Her a Failure. The silence that followed felt physical. It pressed against my skin. Around us, the party continued. The champagne still moved. The chandeliers still glittered. Somewhere in the ballroom, someone laughed at something unrelated. But our little circle had frozen. That's not, Ethan said. He stopped. His voice sounded different now. Smaller. Celeste began reading aloud. Maya Caldwell, 31, founder and CEO of Neural Axis Systems. Estimated personal net worth, $7.4 billion. Recognized as one of the most influential innovators in artificial intelligence, predictive medicine, and quantum infrastructure. No one moved. I watched Ethan's expression shift as the information entered his mind and began destroying the version of reality he had been performing all night. Neural Axis went public 8 months ago, Celeste continued, her voice trembling slightly. It was one of the largest technology IPOs of the decade. Caldwell's proprietary AI models are currently used by major hospitals, financial institutions, logistics networks, and government research programs. Jonathan had gone pale. Margot was staring at me as if I had suddenly become a different person, even though I had been standing there the entire time. "This says you spoke at the Global Future Summit last month," Celeste said. "And you were on Bloomberg. And CNBC. And Wired called you one of the most important founders of the next decade." Someone behind us dropped a champagne glass. It shattered against the marble floor. The sound cracked through the silence. Celeste kept scrolling. "You just acquired Helix Med Technologies for $2.1 billion in cash," she said. "It says your company is integrating their diagnostic platform into your medical AI division." Ethan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His entire identity as the golden child, the successful one, the practical one, was collapsing in real time. "Maya," Jonathan said slowly, with a level of respect he had not offered me 5 minutes earlier, "is this article accurate?" I looked around the circle. At the people who had just laughed at me. At the parents who had explained me like an embarrassment. At my brother, who had used me as entertainment at his engagement party. "Yes," I said. "It's accurate." My mother appeared beside my father, her face pale. "But you live in that little apartment," she said. "You take the train. You wear," she stopped herself, but not soon enough. "I live simply because I like privacy," I said. "The apartment is close to my office. The train is faster than sitting in traffic. And I never cared much about proving wealth through clothing." My father looked stunned. "Maya, why didn't you tell us?" I turned to him. "I did." The words came out calmly, but something in my chest had finally gone cold. "I tried for 3 years. At dinners. On holidays. During phone calls. I tried to tell you about the company, the patents, the investors, the research. You told me I was wasting my time with computer fantasies. You told me to stop chasing unrealistic ideas and get a real job." The memory settled over them. Because it was true. Every time I had tried to explain my work, the conversation had drifted back to Ethan's promotion, Ethan's bonus, Ethan's apartment, Ethan's brilliant future. "You didn't understand," my mother whispered. "No," I said. "You didn't want to understand. Understanding would have required listening. Listening would have required believing I might be capable of something before the world confirmed it for you." Celeste was still looking through articles. "There are videos of you everywhere," she said. "How did we not know this?" "Because you weren't looking," I said. That answer landed harder than anything else. "You decided years ago that I was the family disappointment. After that, everything I did had to fit that story. If it didn't, you ignored it." Ethan finally spoke. "Forbes says $7.4 billion? That estimate is low," I replied. "It does not include private holdings or several intellectual property assets that are not tied directly to neural axis. The real number is closer to $9 billion, Jonathan repeated, barely above a whisper. The number moved through the group like a shockwave. Ethan made a very good income. By ordinary standards, he was successful. But next to what I had built, his entire career had become a footnote in the room where he had just tried to make me small. Jonathan cleared his throat. "Your quantum infrastructure platform," he said. "The article says it could change medical research, cybersecurity, and financial modeling." "It already has in some areas," I said. "We are working with several federal agencies and more than 40 major corporations." Margot's expression had transformed completely. The careful pity was gone. In its place was calculation, embarrassment, and a sudden desire to be close to me. "Maya," my mother said, tears forming in her eyes. "We are so sorry. We had no idea. We are so proud of you." There it was. The sentence I had wanted for years. But now that it had finally arrived, it felt empty. Too late. Too public. Too convenient. Are you? I asked. My mother blinked. Are you proud of what I built, I said, or are you proud of what it means for the family now that everyone else knows? No one answered. Because no one needed to. My father looked away first. Then he said, quietly, both. At least that was honest. Celeste's phone kept buzzing. More notifications. More shares. More people discovering the article, the Forbes cover, the stock price, the humiliation unfolding in real time. This is going online, she said, panic creeping into her voice. People are posting videos. Ethan looked around the room. He understood now. By morning, the story would be everywhere. Billionaire tech founder publicly mocked as family failure at brother's engagement party. The optics were brutal. Not just for Ethan. For my parents. For the Whitmores. For everyone who had laughed. I placed the empty tray on a nearby table. I should go, I said. Maya, wait, Ethan said quickly. We need to talk. I turned back. He looked different now. Less polished. Less certain. Less like the man who had owned the room 10 minutes earlier. We need to figure out how to handle this, he said. There is nothing to handle, I replied. You introduced me exactly the way you see me. His face tightened. The family failure, I continued. That was your truth. The fact that your truth does not match reality is not my responsibility. But people will think. He stopped, because we both knew what people would think. And this time, they would be right. People will think whatever they think, I said. I stopped building my life around your opinion a long time ago. Then I walked toward the ballroom exit. Behind me, the whispers began immediately. Guests searched my name. Phones lifted. Screens glowed. People who had ignored me all night suddenly wanted to understand who I was, what I owned, what I controlled, what I might be worth to know. Outside the hotel, the night air felt colder than I expected. I called my driver. I had started using one months ago, after the media attention became too constant and public transportation stopped feeling private. While I waited near the entrance, my phone buzzed. It was my assistant. CNBC wants to move your interview to tomorrow morning. They want to discuss the Forbes cover and the market reaction to the Helix Med acquisition. Should I confirm? I typed back. Confirm. Also schedule legal and PR for tomorrow afternoon. We may need to discuss a personal matter that could affect public image. When the car arrived, I looked back once at the glowing hotel windows. For 3 years, I had carried the weight of being underestimated by the people who were supposed to know me best. I had wondered if maybe they were right. Maybe I was strange. Maybe I was reckless. Maybe I was choosing the harder path because I did not know how to live in the normal world. But tonight made something painfully clear. They had not failed to see me because I was invisible. They had failed to see me because they needed me to stay small. Ethan needed to be the star. And in that story, someone had to be the failure. That role had been assigned to me long before I had a chance to prove otherwise. The drive back to my building was quiet. The city passed outside the window in streaks of gold, silver, and red. Office towers glowed against the night sky. Somewhere behind those windows, millions of people were working, dreaming, trying to become something no one around them could see yet. By tomorrow, the story would be everywhere. People would analyze it, mock it, turn it into headlines and clips in think pieces. Ethan's engagement party would not be remembered as the night he celebrated his future with Celeste. It would be remembered as the night he tried to humiliate his sister and accidentally revealed that she was more powerful than anyone in the room. My phone rang as we pulled up to my building. Ethan. I watched his name flash on the screen for a few seconds before answering. Hello. Maya, he said. His voice sounded strained. We need to talk. Tonight got out of hand. No, I said. Tonight got honest. We can fix this, he said quickly. We're family. I looked through the window at my building, at the penthouse I had paid for in cash but allowed my family to believe was a tiny apartment because correcting them had become exhausting. Are we? I asked. Silence. For 3 years, I continued, I tried to understand what family meant to you. Tonight helped. That's not fair, he said. Family supports each other. Where was that support when I was working 16-hour days building my company? Where was it when I tried to tell you about my patents? Where was it when I was excited, exhausted, terrified, and hopeful all at once? He said nothing. Where was family loyalty when you introduced me as a failure in front of 200 strangers? His breathing changed. I made a mistake. No, I said. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. Tonight was not a mistake. It was the result of years of choices. So what happens now? He asked. For the first time in my life, my brother sounded afraid. I don't know, I said honestly. That depends on whether you actually want to change, or whether you only want to repair your reputation. Give me a chance. I did, I said. For 3 years. Then I ended the call. I rode the elevator up to my penthouse. The doors opened into a quiet space filled with soft light and floor-to-ceiling windows. Below me, the city stretched in every direction, alive with motion, ambition, and people trying to prove themselves to someone. For years, I had built an empire in the shadow of my family's disappointment. Tomorrow, that shadow would be gone. Not because they finally saw me, but because I finally stopped needing them to. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my head of public relations. The story is trending. Stock is up 14% after hours. Hashtag engagement party reveal is exploding. Do you want us to issue a statement? I set the phone down. For the first time in years, I did not feel the urge to explain myself. The family failure had become a billionaire founder. But the truth was, I had already been that person before the Forbes cover, before the IPO, before the articles, before everyone suddenly decided I was worth noticing. Nothing about me had changed tonight. Only their willingness to see it had.